Hey everybody, it's Phil again with another episode of Michigan Main Street Stories here in beautiful downtown Grayling. It is incredibly stormy out right now, so you might be looking around like, Phil, that is not beautiful at all. It is, trust me, it's just the weather that is not. And I'm joined by Jill. Jill is the Main Street Director here in downtown Grayling. Hi, Jill.
Hi, how are you?
I'm pretty good. We're coming off the tail end of the canoe race.
Yeah. In the River Festival.
The River Festival. Let's just jump in. Tell for people that don't know about the canoe race, tell me about that, and then we're going to blow it up, talk about the River Festival.
So the AuSable River Canoe Marathon is a international canoe race that happens. It starts in Grayling. They boat all the way out to Oscoda. It goes overnight, which a lot of people I don't think realize when they kind of get involved with it.
So
it's
intense.
The most intense spectator sport.
Yeah, why do they call it that? Talk to me about that.
So these folks who are paddling, of course, obviously they're high level athletes. People are training all year. People are doing multiple races to be able to participate in that and to make it through the night and to actually finish at finish first of all and finish at a time that they want. But along the way, you have feeders. So you have a team of people behind you who are doing little supply drops along the way, and you have to beat the racers to each point, and it all has to be coordinated. It's all choreographed. It's also like following the race because it happens overnight after a whole week of, we have a festival. The marathon committee itself has a bunch of other smaller races where people can win more money and stuff like that. Like, it is a lot of energy. Saturday night is crazy in this town. It is so fun. Like, the energy, it's just palpable. And then they're following these racers all the way down through to Oscoda and watching them finish the race. And, it's part beautiful because there's all these points along the way, Mayo Dam, and just all these gorgeous places. You watch the sunrise while these people are coming through, and the water is glass and they're cutting right through it. I mean, it's breathtaking. But at the same time, like, you forget they're humans and they're like, their ribs hurt and, they are starving and just stuff like that. It's just really fascinating. It's a whole fascinating experience.
It's also fascinating because of that additional spectator element that it's not just, of course you do have spectators who are just watching the race, but these feeder teams are, they're as much a part of the race as everything else. They're hopping in the car, they're running down banks, they're covered in poison ivy, unfortunately, sometimes. That's my wife. And so it's just a really cool team sport in that, yes, there's two people in the canoe, but they've also got this feeder team that is so critical.
Yeah, it's incredibly critical for that feeder team to be where they need to be, to give the correct supply at the right time, and to be able to read their racer, to know exactly what they need.
Yeah, and you mentioned the energy too, and for folks that might be hearing about canoe marathons for the first time, they're thinking, wow, that's a really long marathon. That doesn't really sound that energetic. But you look at even video clips, and just the intensity of the race is really incredible.
Well, and I think a part too that people don't realize is that it's a running start. So there are qualifications that happen earlier in the week to get placement. And this placement along the start line goes all the way down one of our city blocks. This year we had a record number of entries of, I think the total was 100 racers. Or 100 teams, so it's 200 people.
Wild.
But they were lined all the way down this block, and then a gunshot goes and they are running and jumping into a river.
Yeah.
And it's I've never seen anything like it. The first 3 years I watched it, I cried every time because it's just so powerful. You can't help it.
Yeah, just sprinting, literally sprinting down the sidewalk, throwing the boat in the river, jumping into the river, hopping into this boat, which are super tippy boats, P.S. And then you just like the entire race, they're just boom, 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 harder, harder, harder. It's just really incredible. And the other incredible thing about Grayling is that we all of our communities have events. Some of our communities have signature events. Some of our communities have really big signature events. And it would be, I don't want to say enough for Grayling to just say, cool, the race is it. But you guys have built an entire festival around the race. So tell me about River Festival.
So the AuSable River Festival actually began as the Milltown Festival many, many, many years ago. And so Grayling had these 2 big events that were happening in the summertime. Eventually, one or the other would have more attendance or less. It would ebb and flow. And then somewhere along the line, the decision to put them together, to pool the resources, to make this big, one-time event happen, occurred. And it's been growing ever since. This past year, we have a beer tent now that happens downtown. We have 3 days of live entertainment that happens just across the finish line in our downtown district. There's a whole food court of food trucks. We have an entire arts and crafts show that happens in the city park. There's events that are happening all week long leading up to the race. So it is this huge celebration. But to kind of speak to that is, I know that coming up in some of your questions, I'm just going to jump right to it, is just the how often Grayling does that, how often the community of Grayling kind of takes one thing and then puts in another thing and then makes it into this other thing, and then it kind of grows and changes and morphs and continues to always be shape-shifting. And part of that, I think, is because naturally we are such a small area. We're such a small city. The city of Grayling is only 2 square miles. And then we have a surrounding township, and then people travel in from outside the area within 30 minutes or so to come to events in downtown Grayling. But the people who are executing these events, who are putting these things together, are the same people. So I have members of our Grayling Main Street board who are also on the board at the Chamber of Directors. Or I have high-level volunteers who are part of an association in our community who are also part of the Rotary, who come and help me at my events. And it's typically the same people. So if somebody's already working, say, on the canoe marathon committee, helping to plan that series of events and that series of celebration or whatever, they're probably also in communication with the group that puts on the River Festival. So there's a lot of overlap. My favorite thing to say is that busy people are busy people here, because it's true. You can have one meeting at 9:00 in the morning down at Michigan Brew and then plan another one at 12 in the afternoon for another event, and it's going to be pretty much the same group of people that overlaps.
There's so many beautiful things about that, because one, you're really leveraging an event that's already in place, rather than saying, okay, how can we create 3 different events that all require 3 different logistics and plannings and teams and resources and all of those things and promotion to put together. We have this golden jewel, or we have this event that is really, really popular. What can we do to build around it, build on top of it, make it a multi-day event, so people say, hey, I'm going to come stay in Grayling for 2 days instead of just be there for the day? How can we really amplify what's going on? And I think that's a beautiful encouragement to so many of our communities. If you've got great events or a great event, think about how can you expand that, amplify that, make it a week-long festival instead of a one-day festival.
Well, I think the most important part of that story is collaboration. Who is getting invited to the table? Who, if somebody walks up to you and says, hey, I have this really great idea for you guys to add to River Festival, or to add to Christmas Walk, or to add to this block party, you're coming to the table with us, and I'm going to put you in charge of that.
You know what? That is a great idea. You can help us make it happen.
And then they're in the fold. And the really collaboration to boil our Main Street program down is that part of our vision and mission is to be a collaborating body where we're bringing all sorts of different voices and thoughts and needs and desires to the same table and just trying to work together to address everything.
A similar kind of concept to building something around an event on a smaller scale. Tell me about the city clock.
Oh, the city clock.
Yes. Yeah, tell me about that.
So this year, Grayling just turned 150.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's almost 2 centuries, people.
Almost, not quite. We're getting there.
Yeah.
So it's called our sesquicentennial. So our community has kind of come together and has done quite a few different little pocket events and just amplified some existing events that we already have, or like put on some special things. Last year, in preparation for our sesquicentennial, Grayling Main Street had applied for a Vibrancy grant to do some sprucing up downtown. So we painted some interesting artwork across our intersections. They're paddles, which are kind of an important part of what our culture is. We have installed some lights. We did a few other, pet projects that we needed to get done. But a lot of that money went to pay for an installation of a new city clock. So Grayling used to have a city clock on the 200 block in front of the jewelry store. That building has been renovated, sold to a different person. The clock has disappeared. Everybody missed it, so we decided to put in a new city clock. What we did with the clock installation, first of all, which was a project that took us 5 years to finally culminate to that Vibrancy grant program. So big deal, big feelings, right? We decided we needed to throw a party. So we did the clock installation. We got her all ready. She's installed. She's beautiful. Come see it. And then I threw a block party for it. So I pulled in a bunch. I pulled in some friends who play music, and we have a really great senior center who has a line dancing program that's going on. So they came down, and then put on a cornhole tournament. And so they came down, and then the fire department was here grilling hot dogs. So they were here. And it was just this like really nice mishmash of community. And it was beautiful and sunny and gorgeous that day. And everybody just seemed so happy. And that was like the rest of the summer was like, yeah, this is great and everything, but Jill, will you do another block party? So we're actually I have a block party, the end of the season block party to throw tomorrow. And then next year we're planning some more real serious block parties that will happen throughout the summer.
The underestimated power of, I don't want to say casual gatherings, because it does take some planning, but it's not like planning a multi-day festival. It's just saying, hey, we have this important thing. Let's commemorate that. But instead of everybody just going home after the ribbon cutting or after the ceremony and saying, okay, I guess we're done, say, head on over here. Let's
have a shindig.
Beer and food and music for everybody.
Yeah. So for the block parties, we actually use that. So Grayling has a social district, which we put into place last year, or on the heels of the pandemic. I can't quite remember. It's a little gray. But we have a social district. So the block parties are really spun off of this idea of how do we activate social districts so people know through the summer that they can do that, or throughout the whole entire year that they can do this. So the block party, when you look at the work plan for that, it's a social district activation event. In our thank you. I try. Our 5 social district businesses, I mean, it was like gangbusters. So then we didn't have to get a liquor license. We didn't have to recruit volunteers to get us through a beer tent. We weren't the ones pulling in those funds. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Our job is to bolster the economy. Those social district locations, they were, running out of cups. I had to deliver cups twice to different places that night. And, as we get ready for tomorrow, everybody's kind of got like, now we're ready and we're staffed. It was a good learning experience, but and it was a fun way for us to showcase that and to get people back together.
This reminds me of a conversation I had in Milan, Michigan, with Milan Main Street, and I'm sorry, I'm blanking on her name right now, but she talked about that in placemaking. It's not enough just to create a social district. It's not enough just to close the street and say, okay, guys, go have fun. You as leadership or the government or the champion of that effort, you have to show people its value and its use. So you almost have to teach them, guys, we can go drink here. We can go support these businesses. You can go here at night, not worry about cars blowing by you. How can we use it? How can we really leverage it? And it sounds like one of the leveraging here is that it makes your job easier in that you don't have to coordinate a beer tent and volunteers and all these things. That district's already made for you, and all you have to do is that kind of back-end planning, promotion, and boom, everything's in place.
Yeah, it has been a really nice feature for us when we are doing these kinds of events to just be able to we don't have to do that legwork. It's already done for us, and that double fold of it's going to benefit these local businesses. All of our social districts are mom and pop shops. They're all locally owned. So just to know that they're going to get those sales for the night, and it's going to get them through, the winter, all that stuff. The social district activation has really been key for us in planning these block parties in particular.
I love it because this angle is a little bit new in all the conversations we've had with communities implementing social districts, and that yes, socially it's great, and yes, from a business standpoint it's great, but you're really focusing in that they are also a tool to use, that it is community development, that it is bringing people together in a bunch of different ways. It is economic development in the fact you're having people out and about and maybe going into some of these shops and things like that. And it's just a beautiful application of it. We've talked about canoe race and the festival and these social districts. I'm curious to hear how you might explain the culture and the community of Grayling to somebody who isn't familiar with this place. I mean, they might have heard about the canoe marathon, but obviously the community is considerably deeper than that. So how would you describe this place to somebody who doesn't know about it?
So looking at it from a really technical standpoint, our transformation strategy of Grayling Main Street is that we showcase the art of recreation. So we have kind of a dual image, if you will, where part of what we do and the people who are putting in businesses here, or what people are interested, is this presence of art. A lot of art is, we have 2 galleries downtown that are both open and thriving and have a really strong presence and a really strong stakehold in what we do. On the flip side, because of where we're at regionally, we have a ton of recreation that comes and goes in and out of our area. The river goes right next to our downtown district. You know, in the wintertime, we have a ton of skiing that happens here. We have a ton of snowmobiling that happens here. So we kind of capture all of that together in the downtown, where we have 2 fly shops. We have 1 fly shop on our main street and 1 in our district, in our downtown district. It's just that kind of fishing, obviously, on the river is a big part of us too. So I think ultimately, when we're thinking about, who is opening a business here, if they're not doing something with recreation, they're either doing something with art specifically. But beyond that, also, if somebody is opening a business, say a restaurant or a brewery, they're doing high quality artisanal crafts or food or something that's really a really special experience that's both beautiful and fun to do. So there's a little buzz here that's really fun to be around, especially when there's a lot of locals coming and going. And I'm not a Grayling native. I'm a transplant. Grayling was very different than where I grew up, and it took me a while to relax into it. But really, every person is kind and also has an interesting, unique story and a take on something, and has this je ne sais quoi. It's here.
And you're absolutely telling the truth, because I did all my interviews before this podcast, and every single person, whether they're being interviewed or not, or just giving me coffee or water or something, charcuterie. I mean, like everybody is just very open, very nice, very hey, can I help you? Or hey, Chad over at Paddle Hard, you can have these pizzas that I made for you. Both pizzas? Yes, both pizzas. And so now I'm eating pizza on the truck home. So yeah, people here are great.
What's interesting too is that that's not just a current mindset or attitude, that has been going on for generations. This is a place where people have always been kind-hearted and focused on community and community building in whatever shape that looked at the time. If you've talked to Terry Dickinson, he'll tell you about when he did install that original city clock. He had to go down to the sawmill and have these other people help him. And they didn't even think twice about saying, heck yes, we'll help you. That spirit is strong here.
When we talk about Main Street and community development, or the buzzword transformation, and I'm trying to teach myself to also use the word evolution, because sometimes transformation has this, you're getting rid of all the great things about our community, and you can be understood that way. But that brings up a good point about transformation can be good, but it also can be bad. And it's not just about throwing out old things for new things, or just following trends, or whatever. So from your perspective, when you talk about community development and changing and improving and transformation, what is bad development or bad transformation? And then what is good transformation?
Well, I think from Grayling's perspective, and we haven't really gotten to this place yet, everything has happened organically for Grayling, and I think that's part of our good transformation. And I think that our goal is to keep pushing into that vein of, investment in projects from outside sources is fantastic, but Paddle Hard is locally owned. Michigan Brew is locally owned. These people live where they work and where they play. And so it kind of adds a different level of investment, because it's not just a financial bottom line. It's also about that community aspect of, what am I providing for the rest of this community? I think if, and God forbid it ever happens, we tip into realm where that community focused aspect is gone, that would be a bad way for us to travel. That would be bad transformation. But I don't really see that happening. We have a lot of people in leadership at the city, at the Chamber of Commerce. The people who are doing the investment or working towards bringing the investment in or helping people build things are also community focused. They're community members. So there isn't this cold big box store coming to us. We are not at that capacity. We're at a capacity that can support, somebody's dream to build a brewery or put in an art store, different stuff like that.
You mentioned people starting businesses where they live here in Grayling. And that reminded me of something Chad said at Paddle Hard, because one of the questions I asked him was, why buy this business and continue this business here in Grayling as opposed to someplace else? I mean, you talk to Chad, and from his age 8, he's been wanting to own a restaurant. He became an engineer, but always wanted to food truck, a restaurant of some kind of bakery. And so I asked him, why Grayling? And he said, I've never considered any other place other than Grayling. If I wanted to do this, it would be in Grayling. And that's such a beautiful testament to the power of deep roots, because no offense to people investing from the outside, because our communities need them as well.
Sure.
But logically, they're looking at it purely from a business perspective. Where's the momentum? Where, from a business standpoint, from the math of it, where does it make sense for me to open this business?
Right.
Where can I get on the ground floor of the next big community? And that's fine. But here's Chad saying, I don't want to open a business anywhere else. I want to open it here. Right. And then talk to Matt Shaw at My Brew. Same thing. He's like, I want to open my business here.
Yes.
Because I love it here and I want to be here for years and years and decades. And they're just invested on a completely different level.
Right. And so those people are also the people who are part of the boards and part of the organizations and part of the planning committees and having the conversations every day about what's next. How do we do this? How are we going to move ourselves into this direction? And there is this really big groundswell of people who care so much about our community. It's not just about their bottom line, which I think, we are dealing with some investment that we need it as far as housing is concerned. We have some outside investors coming in and putting in housing for us, which we desperately need because we have such a young population. We're totally missing middle income housing 100%. So anybody who wants to work at the hospital or the school system or, bring their family and live here by the river, we don't quite have housing to meet them. So we do have investment happening in those ways, but sometimes it seems a little disjointed when you look at it from the outside. And we've come up against some barriers about, finding, pots of money to help us finish some of the investment, but just continuing that battle because the growth here has been so organic. It has been kind of slow paced. I moved here right after, I moved here in 2011 and the downtown district was still, you could still see the effects of the downturn from 2008. They were still living it every day. Slowly investments started happening. Slowly people started reconfiguring, how can we make this look? What's the important part? Where should we put this to make it the most impact? And all those people were local. All those people were pushing things ahead. And it's kind of started to really catch steam.
It's such a great issue. I don't want to say issue, but an idea that you brought up, because talking about housing, because that's something that so many of our community, I don't want to say all of our communities, but a lot of our communities struggle with is this, how do we address this really critical need of missing middle housing and improving low quality housing stock, and how do we give places for people, create places for people to live? And a lot of times, specifically in our smaller communities, we inside our communities, we don't have a person that has the capacity or the experience or knowledge to be able to do that well. And sometimes, and unfairly so, outside investment gets a really bad rap because they're from the outside. How dare they come try to build houses for us when they're the only people that could pull it off. And we as communities, I think, have to be open enough to say, we need you but let's make sure that this is a collab
work for both
of us. That you can't just come in and bulldoze our entire community because you know the way. Let's be a team about this. Let's have standards. Let's talk and be collaborative and say what works for both of us, and that can be such a magical thing moving forward.
And luckily, in the positions where those decisions are being made and looked over, there are people who are wise about where does this investment need to be and how does it need to look, and is it okay to say no somewhere along the line, or can we do it a different way, or push back just a little bit, because the Grayling is so unique. We're not going to be able to have the same kind of housing that Traverse City has, even though we might look the same from the outside, or Bay City or Charlevoix. We're not the same. We need something just a little bit different. So working with people who can listen, who can respond, has been the key for us.
Yeah, there's kind of a segue into this question. One of the things in these conversations I really want to try to emphasize is that Main Street alone isn't the catalyst for the future of a community.
Oh, absolutely not.
They don't shoulder the sole burden, and you wouldn't want the Main Street program to. So within the context of Grayling and Main Street's interaction with Grayling, who's important to that? Who else are the key players in creating this team of people saying, how can we create a better future for our community?
Well, that's part and parcel of exactly what we're talking about, is that, so Grayling Main Street is part of this city municipality. We're funded through the DDA. We are the DDA, for lack of a better explanation. So there's a big partnership that happens between Grayling Main Street and the city of Grayling. There is a big partnership that happens between the city of Grayling and the township of Grayling that envelopes us. Beyond that, beyond what municipalities are at work, Crawford County's office is right here at the end of our downtown. So there's a lot of crossover that's happening governmentally, right? And we have a coalition of economic development. We meet every quarter to talk about what projects are going on. How is this resource affecting that resource? What can we do together? Beyond that, there are a crap ton of volunteers and volunteer organizations. We specifically, Grayling Main Street works a lot with the Chamber of Commerce, which has a really nice stronghold in our region. We also work a lot with a group of volunteers called the Grayling Promotional Association. They support a lot of our programming. We are building bridges with our Rotary. And beyond those civic organizations, every business owner in our district, and a lot of them in our surrounding district, are also coming to the table, are also trying to connect in. I get phone calls from people all the way down the road where the highway comes into the town of, how can I be a part of the block party? I know I'm not in the district, but how can we creatively get involved? Because we're all one big family here.
Yeah.
So
they see the value of it.
Yeah, everybody's coming to the table to help. Everybody's bringing something to the potluck, essentially. Yeah,
I was just in Sheboygan this morning before this interview, and that was something that we talked about. There was that downtowns have a specific role within a community. It's not that they're better than the township or the other commercial districts, all of these other things. They play a really significant role. And the success of that area, because of how communities develop and how people work and things like that, if it's successful, that has a huge ripple effect on the rest of the community, because if the Main Street is successful, that ripples outside the immediate district, into the townships, into the surrounding county, all of these other places. And so everybody stands to benefit from this work. It's not just, Main Street above all. It's understanding that if that is successful, we all have a better chance of being successful.
And quite frankly, if the attitude of the Main Street program was Main Street above all, we wouldn't be successful in this town. It just wouldn't work because that mindset does not flow with everything else that's happening. Yeah,
absolutely. You received a Vibrancy grant here in Grayling. Tell me a little bit about that, because we've talked about Match on Main and a lot of our other communities, but not specifically about Vibrancy grant. So first tell me about what that is, and then tell me what was received here in Grayling.
So the Vibrancy grant is for Grayling Main, or not Grayling Main Street. The Vibrancy grant is for Main Street programs to invest into their downtown district in some way, shape, or form that they see will increase their vibrancy. So Grayling, we used ours to paint these sidewalks. We put art into these sidewalks with paddles, which is kind of a moniker of who we are as a town, in our branded colors. We did little pet projects like repainting some light poles. Trying to think of what else we did. Oh, one of the big ticket items besides the city clock that we put in is that we also purchased picnic tables and umbrellas to be able to use for community events, because we have so many things that happen where we don't have something like that. So we have, tomorrow at our block party, there's going to be, 15 picnic tables lining the streets so people can bring food and sit with their families. I put board games out too, because I think that's so fun.
Heck yeah.
But we installed that city clock. That was a big chunk of the money.
I love it. Hold on one second. I'm going to move all of this stuff out of the rain. Again, Grayling is beautiful. The weather is not. And I'm watching our phones over here get soaked. Hold on.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
It just fits the Grayling theme of water everywhere. It just ends up all
water is everywhere.
Yeah,
it's just a little bit of liquid sunshine.
Yeah, and I love the Vibrancy grant because it says, hey, what are things that make the touches that are so needed, are so necessary? Like you think umbrellas. Well, do you need umbrellas? No, you don't. But who wants to sit at a table under 110 degrees scorching sun? Nobody.
Right.
And so having that just amplifies the use of this, amplifies the experience of this. But those things cost money.
Right. And part of our mission of having those umbrellas and the picnic tables is so that when other community groups are wanting to do something downtown or wanting to do something in the area, then we can loan them out or we can rent them out. So it's a little bit of a money-making strategy for us.
Perfect.
It's also placemaking. Placemaking for us has become really important. We've done quite a few different projects to really increase the impact of our downtown district.
Tell me about those.
So we have completed a lighting project that took us about 3 years to make happen, and really all it ended up at the end of the day was getting these beautiful lights strung along downtown, the whole district. We do have a phase 2 for us to go down another street where our district continues. That hasn't happened yet, but that took about $10,000 and 2.5, 3-ish years to execute, and a lot of people bringing money to the table. We have a full district banner program that is a money-making source for our program. So annually we do a veteran banner project. We also just finished our canoe paddler project, where we have pictures of canoers that are sponsored by outside sources, and then we display them during the month of the canoe marathon. In the past, we've also done banners for seniors getting ready to graduate, which people really love. We haven't done that for the past couple of years, but I think we're going to start doing that again.
Cool.
And the turning point of those paddles on the sidewalk, and I know it sounds really silly, but that has become a thing that people are taking pictures of and posting on social media because it is so unique. It's so different, and they're so pretty. They're so fun to look at. So it just adds this little spice. And then the final project that we've really been focusing on the past few years is this flowers partnership that we have with the Grayling Promotional Association. That we're looking out at the street right now, and there's these baskets and planters of beautiful pink flowers.
They're huge and beautiful. I mean, they are big.
They are huge. Yeah. And it takes both of those programs to execute this project, as well as a guy who goes around, Mr. Nelson, every day or every other day at 3:00 in the morning, when the downtown district is quiet as can be, and waters the heck out of them. So that when people come to Grayling, they're like, oh my goodness, look at these flowers, look at these lights, look at these paddles, look at that banner. This is so interesting. Just the fact that we're colorful and bright and interesting to look at, all those things have really built character and personality for us.
When I'm asking for your opinion here, and of course, just to preface this, great community development takes engagement and planning and everybody's opinions at the table, all those sorts of things. So I'm just asking your opinion here.
Okay.
When you look into the crystal ball of Grayling's future, what do you see? What do you want to see? What should there be 5, 10, 15, 20 another 150 years from now? What do you think?
Well, ultimately, I think that if we can continue on this path of having really unique mom and pop shops or things that are executed that are very interesting but executed very well, that's the path that Grayling really needs to continue to trudge on. I think bringing in a lot more of this outside energy that we have, like pulling in all of the recreation so that those people are able to travel through our area. Right now we're working on finishing a bike path project, and that will essentially connect us into the Iron Ball Trail, which will go right next to our downtown district.
Very cool.
Which will go across the river. So it's just kind of like pulling in these little pieces. I do think, we do have some vacancy on our main street and in our downtown district. So obviously we're working on that, trying to find good projects and investment that will fit the space and still honor the historic preservation that we we desire and that we really, really want to see. Nobody wants to see Shoppenagans torn down. We want to see it invested in and brought back to life. So just little projects like that. I say little, but really,
that's
these
little touches.
Just these little touches as we stand in the middle of one of these projects. We're in the middle of Paddle Hard Yard.
Tell me about this place.
So we're in the middle of Paddle Hard Yard, which is looking romantic even in the rain. It's gorgeous.
Does. Yeah, if you're watching this on camera, it's not romantic. You see us and you see this kind of dark, stormy thing, but this place is going to be rad when it's done.
It's essentially shipping containers built into a bar, and it's going to be an open air bar. Sort of like I do know that they want to have performances down here and community groups to be able to come down here and hang out and spend time together. But this has been, I want to say 2.5 years in the making, and not for a lack of trying. It's just been this like slow and steady march to the finish line. And, right when they think they've got something figured out, this kind of goes haywire and they have to focus on that. And then it's just like the slow, painful process while still running Paddle Hard. Yep. It's just been a big project, and I think everybody is just waiting with bated breath for the time that we can finally come in here and have a drink and celebrate. And,
what I love about this is outdoor seating kind of became very popular over COVID, which is amazing, shutting down streets. What I love about this place is the size of it. Also, the kind of the variations of it, like I could hang out here, I could go over there, I could walk up these steps, I could hang out here, I could go inside. It's just I don't want to say a playground almost, but a really, really cool enclosed community space.
It'll be interesting to see how it grows and shapes itself as people are able to start coming. There's a whole second level, which we don't have any of that in our downtown district. So they are the pioneers where customers can go up. We do have some second story residential units, but I walked up there before we started this interview, and that's the first time I've ever seen some of Grayling from the second floor, and for it to be so open and for me to see the roof of the copy shop, I kind of trippy a little bit. And I said to Josie, one of the owners, I was like, this is magic. I cannot wait for everybody to see this.
Chad described it as a community backyard.
Oh, I like that.
Which is so cool. Like you just walking off the street and they're like, oh, hey, buddy, how's it going? Go grab a beer and sit down. Like it's just like that vibe. This is exactly going to be that vibe.
Which is perfect for Grayling because we really are just a giant block, giant neighborhood.
Well, before I leave, I should go over and Paddle Hard, tell Chad he should just AstroTurf this entire place or put in sod or something.
I don't know if that's in the...
Go hardcore into the community backyard theme, bro.
Take your shoes off at the door.
You got to do it. You got to do it. Before we close this interview, I want to bring up something that Terry said over at Artisan Village, and Terry was one of the people responsible for bringing Main Street into Grayling, and I asked him why, and not only with Main Street and bringing Main Street here, but with Artisan Village, so with the why be involved in the community at the level that he is. And what he told me was it's doable, or he's talking about these ideas, and he said, well, it was doable. I knew I could do it, and I didn't see anybody else doing it, so I did it. And
it's the most Terry-like thing to say.
And I just want to tattoo that on the face of every citizen everywhere, because it just says so much about the true spirit of community. Or you see something and so that you do it, or you see something and you team up with some other folks and say, hey guys, let's do this. We can do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. And whether that's growing a population or expanding residential or businesses or whatever, I mean, that spirit is just so critical to so many of our communities. And I want to make sure to get that on record for Terry, because it's just such a beautiful way to talk about it.
And bless Terry, because he's so good at putting into words a lot of the stuff that a lot of us other people in leadership can't really get into words. But that's exactly the spirit that is strong in Grayling. There are people who want to see the change and will be the change maker because they see that change. And it's been really lovely for me to be a citizen here and now to be able to serve the community in that way, and to work with other people who are focused on the same thing.
Obviously, if people want to get a taste of Grayling, they should hop in their cars or their canoes, paddle here,
come on over,
walk around Main Street, downtown, all the places, eat everywhere, eat the pizza, drink the beer. But if people want to dip their toe in the water, see all these puns I'm coming up with.
So funny.
Where Facebook, where can they go to get more information?
So our website is downtowngrayling.org. We are also have a strong presence on Facebook, Grayling Main Street, as well as Instagram. We're there too. And I think that's about it.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you, Jill, for this great conversation. I want to thank the city of Grayling for being such amazing hosts. This has been another great episode of Michigan Main Street Stories. Thanks so much, Jill.
Thank you.
Cool. Crushed it just in the nick of time, because we're going to get annihilated.